And Israeli governments appear to remain at an impasse after 2 days of talks in Israeli settlement expansion in the occupied territories. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu extended a stay in Washington to return to the White House Wednesday. But Netanyahu has refused U.S. calls for a settlement freeze, and his government even announced a new East Jerusalem settlement expansion right before the latest talks. Despite objecting to the Israeli plans, the Obama administration has not threatened any punitive measures, including the withholding of billions of dollars in U.S. aid. At the United Nations, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon reaffirmed his stance that Israeli settlements are illegal.
I made it clear that all settlement activity is illegal and that inserting settlers into Palestinian communities in Jerusalem is particularly troubling. This leads to tensions and undermines prospects for addressing the final status of Jerusalem. Yesterday's announcement that final approval has been given to build 20 settlement units in Sheikh Jarrah is unacceptable.
The Israeli government has approved yet another settlement expansion in occupied East Jerusalem, just as President Obama hosted Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. On Tuesday, Israeli officials said they've issued construction permits for building in the Palestinian neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah. The Obama administration had asked Israel to cancel the project when it was unveiled last year. The announcement came hours before Netanyahu and Obama held their first meeting since Israel declared it would build 1,600 new homes in an East Jerusalem settlement earlier this month. In a rare move, news coverage was barred of the White House meeting, and neither side made public statements. Much attention has been paid to the recent tension between the Obama White House and the Israeli government over settlements. The Pentagon and the Israeli military have just concluded another large arms deal. The Israeli newspaper Haaretz reports the U.S. will give Israel 3 new Hercules J transport aircraft produced by Lockheed Martin at a cost of $250 million. Israel's also negotiating a possible $3 billion deal to purchase Lockheed F-35 warplanes.
Between the U.S. and Israel about the expanding Jewish housing in East Jerusalem. It's been a lot about diplomatic ties, but they have not talked at all about holding any U.S. military aid or economic aid to Israel. Talk about the level of aid to Israel. In fact, Hillary Clinton extolled the fact that it's increased in 2010 military aid to Israel.
Well, I'm sure all of your listeners and your viewers are familiar with the magnitude of U.S. aid to Israel. I think the important development is what Amnesty International said after the invasion of Gaza. It put out a very substantial report called Fueling Conflict, and it said that transferring weapons to a consistent violator of human rights is illegal under international law. Israel is a consistent violator of human rights, and therefore there has to be a comprehensive arms embargo on Israel. And the report went into each country in the world, how it supplies and transfers weapons to Israel. But it has to be said, the focus was on the United States. And Amnesty International said 3 main things. Number 1, that the U.S. is by far the biggest supplier of weapons to Israel. Number 2, supplying those weapons to Israel is not only illegal under international law, it's illegal under domestic U.S. law. And number 3, it said, and I think it's important for your viewers to hear it, Amnesty International said what happened in Gaza and they described what happened in Gaza as 22 days of death and destruction. What happened in Gaza could not have happened were it not for U.S. taxpayer money. If you're appalled by what happened in Gaza, you're appalled by the death, the destruction, the systematic attack on mosques, the systematic attack on ambulances, the systematic attack on hospitals, on schools.
And these are detailed in the Goldstone report?
Yes, the 6,000 homes which were all either completely or nearly completely destroyed. Amnesty International says all of that was paid for with U.S. taxpayer money. And now along comes Hillary Clinton, and she's extolling U.S. military aid to Israel. The part that she left out is, number one, it's all illegal under international and domestic U.S. law. And number two, it was that U.S. aid that made possible. You have to bear in mind, I know your program chronicled the use of the white phosphorus. Every white phosphorus shell they found, you can see it in the Human Rights Watch report on the white phosphorus, every one was made in the United States. We are responsible for that war. And it's not just a cliche, it's a factual matter. We made that massacre.